Economists have been split on whether or not we're heading towards a recession. Because of the current state of the economy, blue-collar workers will have less to worry about than in times past. Workers in certain industries will have more to worry about than others during what some are calling a white-collar recession. Hey, and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Preston. I'm a professional recruiter in the technology industry. Even if you haven't been following my recent videos, you're likely aware of the strange place we find the US economy now that the effects of the pandemic have subsided. Economists and market analysts have gone back and forth on the likelihood of a recession. Despite traditional recession indicators, we have seen the economy seemingly make a full recovery after the devastating effects of the pandemic. But now, as we begin to approach the end of the year, economists have plenty of data to look back on, allowing them to solidify a more accurate analysis of the current state of the economy. The unfortunate news is that we do seem to be heading towards a recession, although this one will be a bit different than the previous Great Recession in 2008. Workers in certain industries will have more to worry about than others during what some are calling a white-collar recession. So in this video, we're going to explore what a white-collar recession actually is and how it will affect employees in certain industries. More importantly, we're going to also explore different ways those workers can prepare in order to make it through this potentially difficult time. But before we get started, please consider helping a fellow recruiter out and give us a big like, subscribe, click that bell. Really means a lot. Like I mentioned, economists have been split on whether or not we're heading towards a recession. Some say yes, others say no. While some point to expanding payrolls, increasing job openings, and a return to a 3.5% unemployment rate as proof the economy has fully recovered, less optimistic projections reference the highest inflation levels we've seen in 40 years and 2 consecutive periods of economic downturn, usually a telltale sign that a recession has begun. But now that we've had plenty of time to analyze the data gathered during that time, it seems many agree that we're heading towards something of a recession. But because of the current state of the economy, blue-collar workers will have less to worry about than in times past. Before we go any further, let's start by defining the differences between blue and white-collar jobs that will help us better understand how they'll be affected by a potential recession. White-collar versus blue-collar. We throw around the terms white and blue-collar a lot to classify jobs into 2 broad categories. Chances are you've heard these phrases so many times that you've managed to infer their meanings through context. But have you ever clearly defined the difference between white and blue-collar jobs? Have you ever stopped to think about where these terms actually came from? Jobs involving manual labor are traditionally associated with a blue button-down shirt or uniform, hence the name blue collar. Perhaps more obviously, employees in an office setting are usually expected to wear a white dress shirt into work, so they are called white-collar workers. But as you know, work culture has changed a lot since those terms were coined and they become a bit dated. So let's break them down a little bit more tangibly. Blue-collar jobs are typically trades associated with craftsmanship and manual labor. Examples of blue-collar jobs include landscapers, electricians, mechanics, plumbers, and construction workers. Unfortunately, there is a misconception that blue-collar jobs are inferior to white-collar, when nothing could be further from the truth. Blue-collar jobs are required in order to maintain our infrastructure, and their salaries are often comparable or even exceed that of white-collar workers. Conversely, white-collar workers are usually associated with office spaces, desk jobs, and more administrative work. They are salaried employees, so white-collar positions are coveted for their perceived security. Of course, the truth is that the line between blue and white-collar jobs continue to be blurred. So with that in mind, what exactly is a white-collar recession? What is a white-collar recession? During a recession, employees try to save money by cutting costs. This usually involves scaling back hiring efforts, dropping positions that are seen as superfluous, and even laying off employees who are deemed unnecessary. Depending on the factors that led to the recession, different industries may be more at risk than others. So when an economic slump is referred to as a white-collar recession, it means that white-collar positions are especially vulnerable. So who is at risk? White-collar industries that will be especially vulnerable during this time of recession includes technology, finance, real estate, and business services, all of which experienced unexpected growth during the pandemic and now find themselves forced to scale down as things return to normal. The most vulnerable organizations will be the ones that scaled up the fastest. In fact, we've already seen several significant companies forced to begin mass layoffs, including Goldman Sachs, Twilio, Patreon, Remax, Netflix, Snapchat, among many others. Some candidates even report having job offers retracted. These retractions unfortunately skew heavily towards recently graduate professionals who are just entering the workforce. These entry-level positions will be the most at risk as organizations seek to save money by replacing human workers workers with tools such as AI and automation. So what can you do to prepare? While this may sound disheartening to some, the good news is that being aware of an impending recession gives us time to prepare. If you're a worker in a white-collar industry and are concerned about your job prospects, here are some tips to keep in mind. Be flexible and open-minded. For the past few months, candidates have seen more leverage than ever before. Across the board, there have been salary and benefit improvements, better hours, and of course, flexibility. While some industries will continue to extend candidates competitive offers, other white-collar spheres won't be so lucky. As such, candidates in industries like business services, finance, technology, and real estate will likely have to be more flexible. Consider applying to roles that you may not have before. For an industry like technology, this doesn't mean you have to go into, say, baking, but consider that every company, even if their product or services isn't directly tech related, will have a need for technical support. In fact, these companies often have a hard time finding suitable people for technical roles. You want to apply to roles that also seem like a stretch. Remember that job qualifications are more often than not preferences and not hard requirements. I always urge candidates to aim high and consider roles they may think they are even underqualified for, because they're usually underestimating themselves. It also demonstrates to a hiring manager an eagerness to learn and grow into a position, which reflects well on you. You might also consider applying for jobs you might be overqualified for. In these cases, you offer significant value to organizations and your positions will be that much more secure. Consider to network. Just because companies are scaling back, hiring doesn't mean you shouldn't continue to reach out. Make connections and network. In fact, it's more important than ever. It remains one of the best ways to finding a job. Getting your name out there also ensures you'll be the first people to go if they have an appropriate open position. Make yourself valuable. While this is maybe the most simple and obvious tip, it remains the most important one of all. If you demonstrate your value, employers will be less likely to include you in layoffs. One of my most recent videos explored the phenomenon of quiet quitting or doing the bare minimum and refusing to go above and beyond. While there is certainly an important broad discussion around quiet quitting, the fact remains that this type of attitude is the antithesis or opposite of demonstrating value. In other words, the quiet quitters will be the first one to go if your company begins to lay off employees. Conversely, if you show true dedication to the role by putting in 110%, you'll be seen as a valuable asset to the company. So this just about wraps up today's video on the so-called white-collar recession many analysts believe is inevitable. If you're a worker in a white-collar industry, keep the previous tips in mind. If you're a recruiter like me and you might be wondering, what about me? What should I do? Don't worry and stay tuned, because in my next video, I'll be looking at some ways recruiters can prepare for a recession as well. So if you like this video, just another friendly reminder to support a fellow recruiter, to like, subscribe, click that bell, really means a lot. Feel free to also follow me at Preston_Park, as I try my best to also post behind the scenes content daily. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you on next one.